Have a day today, dog. Offense, great drive.
Go!
He's up. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to Training Camp Live, presented by Honda.
The eternal state of summer winding down here at One Jets Drive for the New York Jets. Just 4 more days until the Jets wrap up the preseason against the crosstown rival Giants. And that guy right there, number 8, Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, seems like he had a mustache the other day, now no longer has the mustache, will play against the crosstown Giants, making his Jets debut here in the Audi Performance Studio. Quincy Enunwa, Eric Allen, and Ethan Greenberg. Q, let's start with you. When you hear Aaron Rodgers is making his debut in the preseason, what are your thoughts on that?
It's exciting. We finally get to see him put it out there, put his pads on, that game jersey. Everybody's been buying the jersey. Now we get an opportunity to see him in it. As a player, though, you get a chance to really see how Aaron Rodgers runs the offense in an actual game. That's really important because if you were to go into the season and not really get that feel, get that sound, all those different atmospheric things, it kind of hampers your progress.
Yeah, and this is just a lead up to the Jets home opener against the Buffalo Bills September 11th, where that atmosphere is going to be unbelievable. I expect this to be a cameo performance appearance at MetLife Stadium. He's going to be in and out, get a few snaps, work with that offensive line and his receivers, and then he'll watch the rest of the game.
Right. I think listening to Robert Saleh, it sounded like, I think Aaron Rodgers is doing some dance moves right now, by the way. If anyone just saw that, he was just rubbing his hair. All right. They must have a fire playlist. But here's the thing. With Aaron Rodgers playing, Robert Saleh did say that he wanted to see him for more than a series to see the transition there from one series to another. If you're a Jets fan and you're watching this or you're listening to Coach Saleh and you hear that guy is playing, Quincy, I think that the nature of most Jets fans would be like holding their breath. Like, why are you playing the guy, the future Hall of Famer that you spent draft capital to acquire? Why are you doing it, and what is your answer to that?
It makes sense, right? I wouldn't stop you from feeling that way. It makes sense for you to feel that way. But I think as a team, as an organization, you want to kind of get the feel out there a little bit. Maybe let them get hit. But I think the most important thing is maybe run a couple no-huddle plays, right? Because that's what you like with Aaron Rodgers. You like that ability to get to the snap, get to the line, kind of confuse the defense a little bit. And you can't really get that feel against the defense. You really get that in the game atmosphere. So I think that's one of the things that they might try to do this week.
All right, I'm going to counter that and say Aaron Rodgers hasn't played in the preseason since 2018. You answer your own question there in terms of why should he play. Look at what happened in the National Football League last weekend. Patrick Mahomes, who just won another Super Bowl, his second ring, played an entire half for the Kansas City Chiefs. You saw Josh Allen getting extended time with the Bills out there in Pittsburgh. Listen, you want him to get a few snaps. Don't worry about him. You're going to make sure he's protected out there against the New York Giants. He's going to make a short appearance. But again, so many new parts here. He knows the offense. He knows Nathaniel Hackett. But everybody around him has to get in sync. So I think there is a lot of value of him coming out and just going through a game routine with his teammates for the first time, as opposed to that happening against the Bills for the first time.
And the Giants, Brian Daboll said yesterday, head coach for the New York Giants, said that it's not really going to alter his plans. I think the plans for New York, the other crosstown team, is that they'll play mostly backup. So take that for what it's worth.
We saw Daniel Jones playing for Brian Daboll last week.
Robert Saleh did say that Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, both of those guys will not play Saturday against the Giants, which leaves for the running backs Michael Carter, who didn't play against the Bucs, Donovan Van Knight, Izzy Abonaconda dealing with a thigh contusion. He definitely won't play. So the Jets, in this final week of training camp, one of the biggest questions has been about the offensive line. And to EA's and to your point, Quincy, about playing Saturday, perhaps the Jets will get their starting 5 out on the field that'll still play week 1. We'll see. Dwayne Brown in Houston getting his shoulder checked out. But the biggest news out of today's press conference was about Makai Becton, the big ticket. Robert Saleh said he will be, in fact, starting against the crosstown Giants Saturday in the preseason finale. Now, Robert Saleh kind of answered this. I was going to ask you, what else does he need to do to prove that he earns first-team reps? But in your opinion, what did he show this past game against the Bucs that he deserves a crack at the starting lineup?
Yeah, so I would be honest and say it's hard for me to kind of read a lot of those things, but from what I've heard from people that really kind of read the offensive line, they said he played really well, right? They said that he really held his own. We know what his talents are, his skill is. He's a big guy. He's able to push guys down on the ground all the time, get the pancakes. We saw him do that a couple times in the game. So he played well. He held his own. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does this week because this is a guy that you want. I mean, I think everybody's rooting for him to be successful, right? You're talking about a guy that's had injuries, not being able to perform at the level that he wants to play at. So, I want to see him go out this weekend and do exactly what he wants to do.
Isn't that what you want to see, EA, from the big ticket is consistency? Because Robert Saleh said we all know the talent's there. It's just a question of doing it practice over practice, game over game, week after week.
I think if you're a Jets fan, you're awfully encouraged by what you've seen from Makai Becton here throughout camp because the Jets were managing his workload early, and we saw him get a few snaps against the Browns in Canton, and then he didn't feel really comfortable on that turf. Then he follows that up with more action against Carolina. He played 28 snaps, I believe, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the CBS camera crew, they caught a number of those replays where he was finishing his blocks and he was moving well. And as Robert Saleh stated, he was playing with a lot of juice. This guy is an awfully talented offensive lineman. He changes the entire dynamic for you up front if he can continue to increase that workload. This is a big step for him coming up. But you got to give him credit for his body transformation and what he has done throughout the summer to get to this point.
Yeah.
Makai Becton led all Jets on offense with a PFF grade of 85.0 against the Bucs. His run blocking grade was 90.2. And to EA's point, Quincy, if Makai Becton's out there and he's, let's say, at right tackle, Dwayne Brown at left tackle, you have AVT, you have Connor McGovern and Laken Tomlinson, don't you feel like that offensive line is a lot different in terms of maybe performance and potential, what we've seen at practice the past couple weeks?
Not just practice the past couple of weeks, but even the last year, right? I think that's a great-looking offensive line. I think if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I feel like I'm going to feel pretty secure behind that offensive line.
So we're 1 week away from when cutdowns happen in the NFL. All teams go from 90 to 53. So you're talking about almost 1,200 NFL players who are going to be released from their respective teams. And then, of course, the practice squad, the waiver claims come subsequently after that. But the Jets have a lot of decisions to make, a lot of difficult ones. And that's not necessarily been the case over the past couple of years. And it speaks to the depth of this roster. Now, when you look at the roster as a whole, EA, what do you think are some of the more difficult decisions that loom for Joe Douglas and his staff?
Well, it's going to be interesting because what's going to happen here is the Jets are ultimately going to keep a ton of defensive linemen. So that's going to impact the numbers at other position groups because the Jets continue to state that, hey, listen, we have to come at you in strength and numbers, and I don't see a lot of guys being released from that talented defensive line. So I think the Jets probably end up keeping more defensive linemen than a number of teams in the National Football League. So that has an impact on other position groups. One of the groups that I'm really watching is the wide receiver group because you kind of know how it stands up top, but maybe is one of these young guys putting themselves in position to make the roster, whether that's a Xavier Gibson or a Jason Brownlee.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. And Quincy, to my opinion, running back's got to be a really difficult one, especially when you factor in the Dalvin Cook signing. Right now, you have Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, Zonovan Van Knight, Travis Dye, Izzy Abanikanda. That list right there, somebody, unfortunately, is not going to make the team. And the Jets are going to have to let go, not just for the running backs, but of good NFL players who could very easily land on another team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point both you guys made, right? I think receiver, you think about the top to the bottom. I think Gibson had a great return last week, so that might be an opportunity for him to, make the team as a special teams guy because you got to think about it. Those last couple spots, you got to be a special teams guy. So I'm also looking at the running back room the same way. Who's going to step up on the special teams room? Who's going to go into Coach Boyer's office and say, look, I need to be on this team? Because that's the most important position right there. If you think about those two, running back and receiver, if you think about how you're going to make the team, those top guys are going to get those reps.
Right.
So you got to find a way to hit the field.
And remember, as far as the running back group is concerned, Michael Carter, who played very well against Carolina, he had the night off last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you pointed out Brownlee and Gibson because both those guys valuable or have shown value on special teams in very different ways.
Yes.
Gibson as a returner, Jason Brownlee getting reps on the punt coverage, kick coverage units. Yeah. Quincy, we appreciate your time here on Training Camp Live, presented by Honda. Let's check in on the field with Caroline Hendershot.
I know you guys were just talking about the depth of the roster. Another one of those position groups that has a lot of depth is the safety room. And Robert Saleh spoke all last week about how Tony Adams hasn't played yet because there's still a lot of battles going on for that fourth spot. And Saturday, we saw Ashton Davis really make a statement. 3 tackles for loss, 7 tackles in all of the snaps that he played. And Coach Saleh had some great words about him. He said his athleticism, his speed is unbelievable. He contributes a whole lot on special teams. And he just has like a genuine appreciation for Davis. So while the competition is deep, I think Davis made a really good case for himself this past Saturday.
Appreciate your time down on the field. Now back in the Audi Performance Studio on Training Camp Live, presented by Honda. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, Janae Coakley in the house.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Yeah. So Caroline was just talking about the safeties a little bit, and we'll talk about them later, EA. Quincy was here. We asked him his thoughts. Aaron Rodgers playing against the New York Giants Saturday. Where do you stand on, should he play? Jets fans obviously holding their breath. Should he not play? Where does Janae Coakley stand?
Janae Coakley stands on, can we wrap him in bubble tape, please, and wait till September 11th to play? But I understand why he has to play. I understand. And like Quincy and you guys were talking about being on the field. Listen, I've covered the NFL for about 20 years now. One thing I know about these guys, they are routine guys. They are guys who have their certain routines of what they need to do. Aaron Rodgers, I know he's played 18, 19 seasons, but this is the first time he ever goes to MetLife Stadium. This is the first time he figures out where are my lockers, where I'm going out, the game, running out. And as you know, the stadium's going to be rocking up against that Giants game. September 11th, a Monday night home opener in MetLife Stadium. He's going to be a little nervous. He's going to have the butterflies. I mean, as much as Aaron Rodgers gets those butterflies, but I understand why he needs to play and why he needs to get that routine and understand, all right, these are my guys. This is my new team. I'm wearing the green and white.
That's a great point about going out there and playing at MetLife because there's going to be 75,000+ people there for a preseason game.
Oh, yeah?
Because
yeah.
I'm saying that
Okay.
because the interest is there.
Yep.
And you're talking about, we know what this dude can do physically. Nobody's talking about that. It's more about the communications with the teammates. And let's have a little dress rehearsal, and he'll be able to do that on Saturday night. Yes, I am on record saying
75,000 plus.
More.
Yeah,
You don't think so?
No, I don't know. I don't know what to expect.
I think I do. I do
Yeah.
think. I mean, because it's the Giants, it's the Jets, it's Aaron Rodgers now playing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as Dan, I mean, granted, the Giants aren't playing their starters.
No.
But it's just the Giants and the Jets.
Yeah.
The last preseason game, I mean, come on. There's something, and like you said, it's get in the rhythm, get in the routine, get comfortable, figure out MetLife Stadium.
Yep.
Obviously,
Creatures of
Aaron
habit.
Rodgers plays a big difference in what I'm about to ask you. But how different just is this training camp outside of, let's say, number 8 himself? Like, you've been covering this team for a long time. It's got to feel different outside of the quarterback, too.
It really does. I mean, this is my 14th season. And I was joking with someone. I'm going to mention number 8 because, you know, he's the old guy. And I don't think he's old because, you know, he's around my age gap. You think as a veteran, you know, these young guys are going to lift him up. And they have. These guys are so amped. It's almost like they got their love of football back almost. You talk to JFM, he's like giddy. It's like you're a kid in a candy store. Quinnen Williams in the same way. You're seeing these guys like they love the game of football and they want to play and they're so excited and so as much as the fans are, as much as reporters are coming, the guys are even more hyped up. And that's what I sense this year. Like, they're not just going through the motions. Not that they were necessarily last. It's like stepped up 5 levels because of the excitement and the giddiness, and it's almost like we're loving this game right now.
Speaking of being giddy, I talked to Tony Mancuso, our director of digital operations, up in the press box Saturday night after Rodgers did that interview with CBS, and he sounded giddy to be here, having a blast. How many times have we heard that from Rodgers this summer? But he also said, I miss being out there. That was my tell that he was going to play against the Giants.
Yeah, I think it'll be exciting Saturday. I mean, whether you're a Jets fan, a Giants fan, whether you're holding your breath if you're a Jets fan or not,
Like
your
I said, I
point
kind of
today-
want him in bubble wrap.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that point of view, but you're also going to be exciting turning on your TV, watching number 8, at least operate however many plays or snaps he takes. Someone else that I don't feel like we've talked about a ton, just this training camp a lot, is Quinnen Williams. And mostly because
right?
the addition of Aaron Rodgers. But Quinnen Williams signs his multi-year extension right before training camp starts. Jeff Albrecht said, or somebody said, that he's having his best training camp as a New York Jet. What have you seen from Quinnen Williams? Because some people do change once they get paid.
That will not happen with Quinnen Williams. I actually sat down with Quinnen a couple weeks ago. Again, it seems as if like he's a new guy. He wants to prove it. It's almost as if like, oh, people want me to fail because I did get that big contract. He has so much more to prove, and that's what I felt like. He just is like, I want to go out there and be better. I wasn't good enough last year. I want to prove that I earned this money. And I was laughing with him because last year he got married and had his best season.
Yep.
Well, this year he had a baby.
Yep.
So he's like, mark my words, it's going to be even better than last year because now I have something to even prove even more. And like I just said, you just feel like almost like this relief is lifted off these defensive players' shoulders almost, because now they're just so excited to go out there and play. And Quinnen Williams out to prove everybody wrong. He wants to have his best season yet. And the thing I found fascinating about him is, I don't remember Aaron Rodgers went up to Quinnen and was like, you need to like do something. He's like, you need to tell AVT and what you saw. And he was like, oh, I never thought about that.
Right.
He's like, I do now. I want to go up these offensive lines and make them better because then they make me better. So I think that was kind of an interesting tidbit because like, I'm getting better every single day being out there.
We got the split screen going right now. Nathaniel Hackett on the right
Talk
side.
about Giddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The new Jets offensive coordinator. Yeah, you're right about Quinnen Williams. I think it's going to be very interesting as far as who's lining up next to him. We've talked about that often here on Training Camp Live throughout the summer. But Al Woods, big number 96. And then there will be other pieces as well. Quentin Jefferson has really flashed in these preseason games. He's going to give you a different look. He's going to be able to pressure the quarterback from the interior as well. And you have so many combinations as far as possibilities are concerned, because you talked about JFM before. Obviously, he can shift inside. Michael Clemens came to camp at 290 pounds. That's the changing face of this defense, is what's happening there in the middle. And then you go back a couple levels at the safety position. One of the big stories here in camp that was an under-the-radar player in the spring was Tony Adams.
Yeah, Tony Adams has not taken a preseason snap. He's taken the same amount of preseason snaps as Aaron Rodgers. Put that in your pipe. Anyway, so here you were talking about the defensive line earlier. That's another
Number
not
11, look
changing
at Jermaine
face.
Johnson. I'm excited about him.
Me too. That's not a changing face. That's more of a changing body, because he's definitely put on some great muscle. If you want to see a great feature on him, check out One Jets Drive.
Which was awesome,
that
by the
aired
way.
last night.
It was so cool. It was
Janae
nice to
says
see
it's
him.
cool. EA and I are biased, but make sure to check it out. Janae, I want to leave you with this. This is obviously the first time we'll see Aaron Rodgers playing Saturday, but this is also the last time that some players will have a statement in a game or an opportunity to stake their claim on the Jets 53-man roster. Are there any players that you're keeping an extra eye on as cuts loom 1 week away?
You guys actually talked about him, Xavier Gibson.
Yes. Well,
Like,
we'll bring him back up again.
Can you please?
Yeah.
Because I love what he's been doing. I love how he's been fighting. I love how and again, he's in a very crowded wide receiver room, let's be realistic. But what he's doing on special teams, because that's how you make the team. And and you talk to him afterwards, like, he's just so positive, so excited. He's like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make the team. And a lot of guys are saying that. But I love, he's fast, he's quick, he's caught on, like, he's instinctive, like, he knows where the ball is. Like, I really am rooting for him. Like, he's the guy I'm really one of my players to watch every week, I feel.
Don't you think also it shows a lot about Gibson in the preseason game against the Browns, muffing the first punt to come all the way where he was waiting for the opportunity just at some point in the preseason to show off the wheels, and he's done it twice now.
Yeah, he has. And he's flanked by Zonovan Bam Knight, and both of those guys, returners, right? They have the capability of being returners for this team. And that's kind of a story that we haven't followed maybe as much as the others so far to date here in the summer. But who is going to be the Jets punt returner in week 1?
Yeah.
Who is going to be the Jets kickoff returner in week 1? Because we know McCole Hardman's got experience doing that, and obviously he's going to be play a critical role on the offensive side of the ball, but what's going to happen in the return spot?
Fascinating battle to watch. And if you want to see Gibson, if you're not going to the game, you got to check out the Jets because they go back to MetLife this weekend. But as the road team in MetLife Stadium taking on the Giants, make sure to watch 6 p.m. on WNBC. Janae Coakley, we appreciate your time here in the Audi Performance Studio. Let's check in with Caroline Hendershot down on the field.
Sure, I'm sure you can hear the defensive line behind me, but I spoke with Solomon Thomas after Saturday's game about the defensive line and their performance as a whole. And he said he thought they did well against the run, but there were some hiccups against the pass. But overall, the young guys played really hard and well, he thought. But as for what they want to do this week, he says they got to get back after that quarterback. They got to bring the pressure, and they got to show their standard and what they're made of. And what I just want to emphasize is we haven't seen any of the ones really on the defensive line yet so far through preseason games. We've seen a lot of rotation, and that just shows how deep this defensive line is. And I know that's really Robert Saleh's standard of football. It's like defense, defense, defense. So I think that's going to be important in this Saturday's game against the Giants to watch what those ones do if they do play.
Caroline, it is crazy to think about what the Jets defensive line, EA, has done. And they haven't even played guys like John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Carl Lawson, still dealing with a back injury. I mean, we've seen the depth of the Jets defensive line last season on display, but this year it feels like it's a deeper, more talented roster.
Carl Lawson often goes to his social media accounts and posts one word: limitless. That's what the Jets defensive line is in 2023, limitless.
There's a Russell Wilson joke in there somewhere, Mr. Unlimited, but we'll save that when the Jets travel to Denver. And obviously that is just loaded with storylines. But I do want to say, you know, speaking of Denver, we should bring up Breece Hall. And the reason why they're connected is obviously that's where Breece Hall, who's on your screen right there, number 20, that's where his season ended last year. But the running backs room, we alluded to it earlier with Quincy, it is so crowded and so diverse. That guy right there coming back from an ACL injury, you definitely know the speed is there. We saw it on display in team reps. His first day taking team reps the day after the Bucs were in town. He takes a short pass. He takes it to the house.
Yeah, and that was so cool because it wasn't just him just carrying the football. It was Rodgers dialing up 20 day one as he returns to team reps.
Yeah, I think that it's not a question ever with the ACL injury. It's about speed. It's more about shiftiness. Can you cut? How do you trust your knee? Breece Hall actually said someone that he was talking to about ACL recovery was Nick Bawden, the team's fullback, the only fullback on the roster right now, who was a college quarterback. Fascinating story. But with Dalvin Cook now in the mix, this room is not only more talented, but it is so deep that the Jets have many players that it's almost going to be not a problem, but it's almost going to be a challenge spreading the wealth, not only in the backfield, but across the offense.
It's the problem for opposing defenses because no matter how many carries or touches Breece Hall gets in week one, you're going to have to contend with Dalvin Cook. You're going to have to contend with Michael Carter. Dalvin Cook has had 4 consecutive years on the ground in Minnesota where he had over 1,100 yards rushing. Workhorse. Now he comes to a backfield where the Jets are going to be able to distribute the football to many guys. There are many mouths to feed here, but it is a good problem to have, as Robert Saleh says.
What did you make of Michael Carter not taking any reps against the Bucs last week?
I think the Jets know exactly what they have in Michael Carter, right? And I think they wanted to take a longer look at a Bam night. Listen, I think Michael Carter is a guy that people have slept on here throughout the offseason, but Robert Saleh made his feelings clear in Arizona at the league meetings when he said, I expect a bounce back season from him. And he said recently of Michael Carter that he looks like the Michael Carter of old. Remember, he's the guy who really jumped off the screen there in his rookie season. So he's a tough runner. So good after contact, and so many yards in the National Football League have to be made after contact. I think Zonovan Bam Knight has had a good camp himself. Tough break for him as far as the ball security is concerned, and that's something that Saleh talked about, not specifically about Bam, but just from a preseason perspective, you want to have good habits, and the Jets turned the football over 3 times.
Yeah, and with Zonovan Bam Knight, I think that, at least on social media, a lot of the narrative was he fumbles the football, he takes the ball out from 6 yards deep in the end zone, almost trying to make amends for something that happened on offense, and then gets tackled before the 20-yard line.
But again, people aren't seeing this, and you can attest to this. I want to get your feelings on this. One thing I want to say about Bam is that, okay, maybe people didn't see it in that game against Tampa, but oftentimes here in camp, he's flashed.
Yeah.
You know, and the Jets, if you look at that backfield, the 1, 2, 3, 4, I would argue that nobody in the National Football League can match that. That's why it's going to be such a tough cut down.
I agree, and I think with Zonovan Bam Knight, I think what the Jets really liked about him last year, and even in this preseason, in this training camp, he runs with an edge. He runs like he's like with an attacking mentality. And the unfortunate reality for the Jets is they are such a deep team that somebody's going to be let go. And let's just say, hypothetically speaking, in this scenario, it is Zonovan Bam Knight. It would not surprise me at all if he gets claimed by another team because he has the talent to do it. Of course, if you're the Jets and you're Joe Douglas and company, you're crossing your fingers hoping that you can bring him back if that's the route they end up going.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting the way this all plays out. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is where are these guys with the injuries? The Jets have said for a while now, very confident about Breece Hall coming back in week 1, and he looks good on the practice field. We know he's not going to see any game action here in the final preseason game against the Giants. Dalvin Cook coming off the shoulder, obviously attending to his family as he's expecting a child to be added to the family. So he'll be back soon as well.
It's crazy to say, but Jets football is almost here. It's time to lock in your season tickets. Be at MetLife Stadium for the biggest games of the year when the Jets host the Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Chargers, and more. Secure your seats now, nyjets.com. It's crazy to think about that, how soon the season is here.
It's less than 2 weeks before you have a regular season week where the Jets will begin their preparations. In fact, I think the Jets will start their preparations next week for the Buffalo Bills.
All right, before we wrap up here in the Audi Performance Studio on Training Camp Live presented by Honda, it's time for our Cover 3. And this is what we're going to do. Unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers made his one mistake of the summer. He shaved the mustache. We had a question, how long would the mustache shave? But based on what we saw, it's gone. But there he is, Saturday night, throwing the football, mustache on. I would have said the mustache would have stayed for a decent amount of time, but I guess he decided not to, EA. Did you like the stash?
A little Tom Selleck there, a little young Tom Selleck with the mustache.
Caroline.
I don't know. He seems like he bounces around quite a bit, and I don't mind that. You know, sometimes he's clean shaven, you know, and he does that with the hair as well. It's just not the facial hair.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, just whatever his mood is, that's what he does. Caroline, were you a fan of the mustache?
You know, I have to say, I feel like the mustache phase is out. Like, I feel like it was very high when Top Gun was in theaters, but I'm feeling like we're on the decline now, and I can't say I'm sad about it.
Which
but
Top
I do
Gun?
Understand.
The first one?
I do understand this. No, the second one, the most popular one this summer.
The one with his good buddy Miles Teller.
Like I understand the excitement of like a playoff beard, but we're not there yet. So I think like maybe just keep it simple for now.
I feel like, to Caroline's point, maybe it's an ode to his good buddy Miles Teller in Top Gun, which Top Gun Maverick came out last year. But don't count out that it was an ode to former New York Jets quarterbacks, also rocking some mustaches. Granted, these are a little bit of the handlebars here as you take a look at Joe Namath on the left side of your screen, the Fu Manchu, the handlebar, and Mark Sanchez. Now, EA, between these two guys, which one did it better?
Well, listen, Namath is always going to go to the top of the line, right?
Yeah, you have to.
But Sanchez is our buddy. He looks good as well. I will say this. Not everybody can pull off a mustache. I can't.
I don't think I can either.
Yeah, you can.
You think I can pull it off?
You have the dark facial hair right there.
Caroline, can I pull off the
I have
mustache?
light facial hair. You don't want to see me with the mustache.
I think next show.
I'm gonna say this is I'm going to say this as lovingly as possible. I don't think either of you can pull off the mustache.
Okay. Next show tomorrow, Training Camp Live, presented by Honda. Maybe EA and I will both go mustache.
I think you can pull it off.
We'll see what happens.
By the way, Caroline was talking about the safeties before. How about Trey Dean? Are we going to talk about him at all?
We're going to talk about him tomorrow.
Okay, good.
On our final training camp show. Training Camp Live, presented by Honda, again from the Audi Performance Studio. That guy on your screen, number 8, making his Jets debut Saturday night, 6 o'clock, against the New York Giants. But tomorrow, we'll run it right back here from studio.